The Plucky Squire is an action-adventure platformer that leaps right off the page and sends players on a vibrant adventure across different dimensions. The titular Plucky Squire, Jot, is on an adventure to save his storybook world of Mojo from the evil Humgrump. Learning the secrets of the land, Humgrump realizes that they're all living in a story, and the only way he can be victorious and rule the world is if Jot's not there to stop him. Therefore, he casts Jot out of the story and into the real world onto a desk in a child's room. After finding his way through the real world and back to the story, Jot teams up with his friends and uses this new power to jump between the different dimensions as they journey across the land and reclaim their kingdom. The levels you explore in a 2D space take you across Mojo. There's top-down and side-scrolling gameplay depending on the orientation of the book that the game sets you up with. There's usually not too much exploring to be done as you're often headed from one area to the next in a linear fashion, but some areas may reward you with a collectible. Collectibles consist mainly of hearts, light bulbs, and scrolls. The hearts restore your health, the light bulbs are used as currency, and the scrolls unlock concept art. I always enjoy looking at the concept art that goes into creating games, so it's really cool to see the thought process behind some of these designs. Another collectible you can find are birds known as glitch birds, and they're scattered throughout the game. In the 3D realm, you're on top of a kid's desk in his room. The desk layout changes in each level as Jot must explore a new challenge made up of art supplies and household items in order to find a new power-up and help him and his friends advance through the story by manipulating the book. The 3D segments are charming, shifting the gameplay right into a 3D platformer. Well, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of these segments. I was surprised at just how much of the game is made up of the 2D segments. You seem to spend a lot more time inside the book than out. You solve puzzles by either rearranging words and sentences to form new ones, or finding the power-up necessary to manipulate the storybook world from the outside. The rearranging of words reminded me a lot of Baba Is You, and it was cool to try out some of the combinations of words, even if they contributed nothing to the progression of the game. This type of puzzle solving also resulted in many instances where I would overthink the solution to a puzzle only to have the facepalm realization and the answer was right in front of me the whole time. Other times I'd have to stop and think for a minute. Where did I see the word that would fit here? And I'd flip through the book using the page-turning mechanic to find the right word and bring it over. The puzzles never got too complicated, and I'm sure this allows for more accessibility so that anybody can enjoy the game. To my surprise, playing the game in both styles felt exactly the same. What I mean is that Jot's controls are the same whether you're in a 2D segment or a 3D one. Your main attack is a sword swing, and you can also throw your sword and retrieve it if it gets stuck for ranged attacks. Additionally, there's a spin move and a jump slash, and you can upgrade your powers using the light bulbs you get from defeating enemies or destroying bushes and trees. It's very much inspired by the Legend of Zelda series, and as a huge fan of those games, this is definitely a plus. Combat's mostly sword fights, and swinging the sword while evading attacks always felt satisfying. It's not the most challenging, but there's a certain level of thought behind your moves besides mindless sword slashing. The combat was easily one of my favorite parts of the game whenever the story would allow. Because speaking of the story is especially the core in this game. It's set inside a storybook after all. It may appear to be just the typical young hero and his friends are on a quest to protect the world from evil, but the various characters and enemies you meet along the way create a world that feels unique. However, there are also moments where the story becomes too important even when the stakes aren't all that high. The game frequently comes to a halt to push the narrative further, detailing everything in our hero's path such as an upcoming mountain, and completely disrupting the flow of gameplay. I understand that the story is important, but having to sit and wait for the story to advance on its own before I could start playing again got repetitive really quickly. It's almost like you're fighting the game for control half the time. The game is also a bit bogged down by the page-turning animation that plays between each area. It's definitely charming at first, but at a certain point it becomes tedious when you're flipping through pages to find the right word and have to wait for it to go one by one. The game also becomes very dialogue heavy at certain points, and toward the end of my playthrough I could tell I was just mashing through the buttons to get through as fast as I could. Throughout the adventure you'll find different types of minigames too. It's not just exploration. Many of the boss fights even have unique playstyles that are inspired by other games. Whether it's a punch-out style fight against a honey badger or a rhythm section, the game throws a few different playstyles at you from time to time that felt like a breath of fresh air. It's almost like a mini celebration of different video game genres combined into one. But for as fun as they are, they're over almost as soon as they begin. Understandably so, this wasn't the main appeal of the game, and they don't want to overstay their welcome. Graphically, the game looks great. The Plucky Squire immediately grabbed my attention with its fun and colorful design. One of the main reasons I was drawn to this game to begin with was the fact that it was being directed by former Pokemon designer and art director James Turner. His art is absolutely charming and instantly recognizable, and that's clear throughout many of the characters in the game. NPCs and enemies are designed to be colorful and cartoony, perfectly matching the design of the world. I especially enjoyed the moments where I could bring an enemy or an object from 2D to 3D or vice versa just to see how their design changed. The lighting in this game is also great and brilliantly portrays the tone of the story, and the desk you're exploring truly feels like a child is actually working there. Over the course of my playthrough, I ran into quite a few technical difficulties, leaving me soft-locked. I'm not really sure what caused them, but my controller would simply stop responding and I'd have to restart from my last autosave point, which thankfully was never more than 2 minutes of gameplay. Other times, such as during the stealth segments, if I wasn't in a precise spot, the game would warp me into the open and insta-kill me. These didn't happen too often, but it was enough for me to say, okay, this is annoying, especially when it occurred during the climax of the final battle. Something I wanted to mention as someone who enjoys achievement hunting and collectibles in video games, I hate how this game handles progression, mostly for the PlayStation trophies. I'm not sure if it's intentional, but there are 3 trophies in the game that you can miss if you don't get them on your first playthrough. Before release, All Possible Futures stated on Twitter that they implemented a chapter select to hunt for collectibles. The trophies for finding every art scroll, every glitch bird, and powering up Jot to the max level are only obtainable when you're first going through the story. If you use the chapter select, your progress does not save. So if I want the Platinum trophy, I'll have to play the whole game again and find everything in one go. Having to play the whole game again because I missed one collectible is infuriating, and this is made even worse by the fact that you can't skip any cutscenes. Overall, the Plucky Squire is a fun adventure game that blends 2D and 3D gameplay in a way that starts off strong but progressively loses steam through constant stopping and starting of the narrative. The different puzzles and challenges to solve create a memorable adventure within a fun new world that's sure to keep you thinking.